Wait, actually?
All that is so little.
Okay, I was told that this map is the map that was circulating before they bought the property. It's not a plan, we were told. And I would like you to focus on this word here, agrarian lifestyle for the residential. And let's go over here and read what agrarian means. Tanya, will you read what agrarian means, please?
Oh, yes. The definition of agrarian is the adjective relating to cultivated land or the cultivation of land. Noun, a person who advocates a redistribution of landed property, especially as part of a social movement.
So the Hamilton County government has used the word agrarian to describe the residential property that they want to rezone in Sail Creek. There's your elected officials.
Is everybody ready to start? Anybody want to get seated before we start? Well,
Mayor
we're glad
Wong.
to see a big crowd, so there's a lot of interest in McDonald Farm. Tonight now, that's all we're going to talk about. McDonald Farm. That's the only thing on the subject, that's the main thing. Well, with Nathan Janaway, Mayor Wong, Matt Pope, have Commissioner Sharp, Commissioner Evershaw, Commissioner Highlander, Commissioner Brown. Have I missed anybody? Commissioner Highlander. All right, this time the man called the answer, Nathan Janaway. I'm gonna get over by the door where I can run. I'll deal with it.
All the lies.
Do you want to give a quick? Okay.
He has a script.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Obviously, this is an extremely important topic for the community. Not just for Sail Creek, but we really feel like it's a big topic regionally. So we really, I'm going to take you through just a brief timeline real quick of what we've done so far this year with the property, and then talk about some of the things that we see as potential going forward. And then I'll let the mayor make a few remarks, and then our Parks and Recs director Matt Bowles give a couple of remarks as well. So I was hired by Mayor Wong last January, and this piece of property was purchased back in 2021 by the Hamilton County Commission for roughly $16 million. And I think back then the idea was we have this very large piece of land that's come up for sale, and we want to make sure that the right things are done with it to benefit the entire county. And even Mayor Coppinger had the vision of some of the land being used for high-paying jobs, and a lot of it being used for Parks and Rec space and space that the community could enjoy. If you look at that map that's at the very far end over here, and if you've got a packet, it's in there as well. It should be the first page. That's a preliminary land use map that our engineer Coy developed at the very outset of this. And the only change that we've made to that map since it was originally published at the first meeting that Mayor Coppinger had on this subject is we've actually added more green space than what was on the original map. The yellow spaces signify what is the, you know, sort of prime land for development. The green spaces are more hilly terrain. They're really better used for open space or park space. And then you've got a little bit of pink there that's identified as, you know, potential residential land. But all that to say, you know, we started stepping through a process on this land to really figure out what we had. And so there's quite a few due diligence things that any developer would have to do just to see what potential issues you might run into with the property. So Todd Lehman, our Administrator of Public Works, started a process where he started doing due diligence studies on the property. That includes environmental impact studies. It includes surveys of the wetland, etc., just to see, you know, to really show us what we've got and what we're working with. And so we started stepping through that process. And then we also had Croy Engineering start the process of doing preliminary engineering reports. And those reports are really to tell us, you know, if we were to do anything at scale on the property, what would it take to do that? And it's just sort of preliminary step before the design process where they go through and give you a calculation of how much money it takes to put in things like water, sewer, and roads. And the original, the estimates that we're still working with from those preliminary engineering reports at total build out would be $14 million for water access, $37 million for sewer access, and $45 million for road access. And so you really start to see, you know, how monumental that is. It would be a huge step to try to invest that much money all at once. And so this is a long process. This is something that is going to take quite a few years to even, you know, decide exactly what we want to do with the property. And I want to say too that, you know, to date the county has not had any serious conversations with any potential industrial users out of the farm. So after that, I came in January, and we started, you know, looking through the things that were already done, which were the preliminary engineering reports, the due diligence reports. And, you know, there's some things that we really would like to see out of the farm, you know, as it concerns park space for the public. Obviously, we had an extremely successful Hamilton County Fair out of the park. That was the largest convergence of people in Sale Creek, we believe, since the Civil War. And so we're really proud of that. And we think it was a great use of the property. But, you know, to accomplish some of our goals, we do need some infrastructure out there. Right now, the farm is on well water. The existing house and bathrooms are on a septic system. You know, and all that is okay for you know, what's going on out there right now. But I mean, Matt will even tell you that it would have been really nice to have water out there for the fair. And our local firefighters and volunteer firefighters would tell you that they really wished we had it when we set off those fireworks. So, you know, that's one of the first things that we really wanted to try to address. And obviously, you know, the county is trying to do best by you guys as far as the money goes. So we started looking into grant funding for water access. And because we think there most likely will be opportunity for high-paying jobs out there at some point, one of the opportunities that was available to us was a Tennessee Economic Development Site Development Grant. And so we worked diligently all summer talking with them. We met with ECD officials, and we made an application late summer, early fall for that site development grant. And what we applied for was water and a intersection improvement at Coulterville and 27. And we felt like, you know, those things, sure, they'll be great someday if we decide to develop this into industrial space, but really, they give us just basic needs for things like the Hamilton County Fair. And so we were awarded that grant, not at the level that we asked for, but that the state has given us $3 million to put towards water access out of the farm. So we're very hopeful that we can provide water access next year by the time the fair comes back to Hamilton County, or back to McDonald Farm. The state also has another designation that we're looking at, and it's their certified sites designation. And what this is it's basically, you you know, you've done due diligence enough to where you're close to being able to start to market a portion of the site for potential industrial use. And again, if you look at this map and if you look at your handout, we haven't made any decisions, but the yellow areas would be, if we were to market the site, they would be the prime spots that something might go. And so, you know, along with that designation comes quite a bit of funds as well. And so we've started the process, we're about halfway through the process of trying to get that site certification. Now that doesn't make any decisions for the property. All that says, if we get the site certification, is that it's close to being ready to having somebody look at it for a large-scale use. But with that designation comes quite a bit of funding. If we were to get that designation, it's highly probable that the state would be willing to come in and build the bypass road to bypass Coulterville so that residential traffic is not affected as much by things like the Hamilton County Fair, but also by things that might come with, you know, a large, maybe a corporate campus or you know, we don't know yet, really is the answer there.
Excuse me, I have a question.
We'll get to questions.
Okay.
We'll try to answer as many questions as possible after the three of us have talked for just a second, okay? And I'll get to you first, all right? So anyway, so we're working on that site certification process. We're about halfway through that. But part of that site certification process is they want us to go ahead and rezone the property so that is not something that has to be done if they market
Show
it
us that
and
in
find
writing.
somebody that wants to come to the site. And so that's really the only reason that we're coming before the county commission with a rezoning request this early in the process. Again, we have not had any serious conversations with any companies or anything for the site yet. This is literally just so that we can move forward to that site certification process to bring more money to the area. And then a couple things about the rezoning. Unfortunately, and we've got Dan here with the RPA, but the county has extremely antiquated zoning laws, subdivision regulations, all of that. It's extremely antiquated. And there's very few tools in those zoning regulations and subdivision regulations that we can use for a site like this, because this is a very unique site. Most likely it's going to be some form of mixed use at some point in the future. And I say most likely because we don't know what that mix is yet. But because the state wants us to do the rezoning, the zone that gives us the most flexibility and the most options for the site is the M1 designation.
We haven't seen that in writing.
And you know, it's funny because I was reading through the zoning code a couple weeks ago, and something as simple as a miniature golf course is only allowed in an M1 zone in Hamilton County. So you can see, like, it basically, you know, we don't have, right now in our zoning code, we don't have a designation that really
So
fits
fix
this
the
problem.
zoning code.
And so the thought process was to give us the most flexibility, to allow us the most options as we go through this process. The M1 zoning does that
That's a
for
straw
us.
man argument.
Now, at the same time, we also are applying for C2 for the large parcel that we had the Hamilton County Fair on. And the reason for that is that, number one, C2 allows us to not have to get a special permit every year while we have the fair. And number two, it allows us, you know, potential for the future. You know, Matt may talk a little bit about it, but we may want to have a park restaurant out there at some point for the public. We can't do that unless we have C2 zoning. We're looking at upgrades to the rest of the facility. A lot of the uses of those facilities, even the facilities that are on property right now, if you want to use it for public use, you have to have the C2 zoning. And so that's really the reason for the zoning there. And that's about just shy of 240 acres that we're asking on the C2 piece. And just to walk through some numbers on the vastness of this property. The total property is just a little over 2,000 acres. It's 2,027 acres. That includes the area that's in Ray County. Hamilton County encompasses 1,442 acres total. The area that we're asking for M1 from the County Commission is 871 acres, but only 277 of those acres are considered prime industrial land. So if you look at the map, I can't remember if it's the second or third page, you'll see kind of orange boxes in the rezoning map. That lines up with this map showing you the sort of the prime areas within that site. And that total rough area is right at 277 acres. The rest of it, we really, I think my hope, Matt's hope, the mayor's hope is that we would use the rest of that land and possibly even some of that 277 acres, for public use. And so, as we go through this process, that's something that we're trying to identify, and we're planning on continually coming back for more and more feedback from the public as we go through this process. I think that's about it from my end. If you guys want to say something.
Hey, thanks for showing up, first of all. Part of what makes the Sail Creek community special is that when it's cold and most people are hanging out at home with their family, if there's community business, this community shows up, and we're honored by that. If you are distrusting of politicians, I understand that also. What we want y'all to understand tonight is that we want to honor the farm, its legacy. We want to honor this community. Our first and foremost interest, at least speaking for my administration, is the recreational opportunities that we think are vast at that farm, which has been privately owned for the 200 years since this county was created by the state legislature. It's ours, and very soon, Matt Foles will be able to speak to a timeline. Very soon, you're going to have access to it for the first time, except for when that family invited you over. And so just to reiterate on the front end a couple of the numbers that Nathan threw out. And for the purpose of this conversation, we're talking about the part of the farm that is in Hamilton County and that is west of 27. As you all may know, there's 350 or so acres on the east side of 27. For the purposes of what I'm talking about, we're talking west of 27, only Hamilton County. 871 acres is being rezoned, but there's already 242, which is what you see right off Coulterville. So what you see from Coulterville, which was roughly the site of the Hamilton County Fair plus a couple hundred acres, that's all conservation now and forevermore. Really beyond on the other side of the train tracks, which is not visible from Coulterville Road, you're talking about this 871 acre pad. As he pointed out, only about 270 of it is considered prime for industry by the state. And we fully expect and intend for over half of the 871 to be for recreational use. This is not developers coming to you saying, hey, we want to rezone and we're making empty promises to you. We're all public officials, and every single major decision relative to what happens on this farm will be voted on by the 11 members of the county commission, half of whom are here. So none of this happens outside of sunlight in that county commission room. All of us are 100% accountable to y'all through elections. And you've heard me, if you've been to any of these community meetings that I've been a part of, talk about my passion, first and foremost, being capturing this opportunity to turn back over to the people of this county, the taxpayers of this county who now own that farm, access to it. And it is going to be beyond what any municipal or county park in the state of Tennessee has to offer. Matt can speak to some of that. It's going to be wonderful, and in the next couple months, you'll get first access to it. And I think in the next couple months, we'll be able to roll out specifics of our plan for phase 2, which will really open up, I think, new opportunities for the people of North Hamilton County in ways that y'all will be exceptionally proud of. Now, the part of this that we inherited is that the county commission spent $16 million not for this to be a park. Now, I'm real excited about it being a park. What I am exploring as a fiduciary is what the economic development impacts of this site could be for our whole region. For Hamilton County, for Ray County, this site's a whole lot closer to a lot of different counties and other municipalities than it is to me. I live down in Lookout Valley. So the economic impact to my community is very limited. And I have been incredibly clear with every state official, all the way to the Commissioner of Economic and Community Development, who is the state's chief salesperson, Stuart McCord, right-hand man of the governor, familiar with McDonald Farm, knows about this asset, and I've told him we don't want just any company. First of all, it's a long process. We'll talk to you about the timeline. If you have questions about the timeline, I think that's something that's really important for the community to know. None of this is happening fast. In fact, it'll probably be even slower than we think it'll be, because that tends to be how government moves. But I just want you all to know that at every level, even when we've gone through this economic development process, I have pushed back on the Chamber of Commerce. I've told them we're not bringing just a random company in here in the name of politicians wanting to put a notch on their belt. At the point in time, if there is a right moment in time for the county to invite a company to do business at McDonald Farm, it ought to fit the fabric of this community. It ought to be aligned with this community in such a way that I think all of you would be excited about and would be additive. I think I remember coming to a meeting like this that Mayor Coppinger had put together while I was a candidate, and I was confused at the time about the timeline. I thought, well, shoot, we're marketing this beautiful farm, and it may very well get away from us, and it might be something the community doesn't want it to be. Part of what I want y'all to understand is that this is a really long, methodical process, and it is going to be incredibly expensive to ever prepare the site for industry. This water just scratches the surface of the more than $100 million that has to be invested in this site for a company to locate here. And one thing I can say on behalf of the county commission is we don't have that kind of money. And the state knows that. And so in order for this thing to even be prepared for industry,
we don't even
we
have an ambulance in Salisbury.
Tens of millions of dollars committed from the state of Tennessee, and they didn't even fully fund the grant request.
We were all stuck in our houses for a week and a half during the snow.
In full transparency.
Our power goes out when the wind blows.
It's going to be a real benefit to the whole community. It's going to, I think, be a tailwind to a lot of the recreational activity, certainly the county fair. But you need to know that if everything went perfect, if we had the most unbelievable, perfectly aligned company that wanted to only be on this site in the state, which they're not at this moment, and the state was willing to throw tens of millions of dollars towards preparing the site, even if all those stars align, and those stars aren't aligned, but if they were, you're 5 years out. 5 years from anybody going to work there. And I think realistically, at least as long as I'm in this role, we're going to be staunch guardians of everything that takes place there. And the
is probably how long it takes to build something.
Is for y'all to have access to it, for us to celebrate it, and for us to be really intentional and stingy about how we think about its future. But I want to remind you this one thing, that everything that goes on there, even the appropriation of funds to build the park that Matt and I are so passionate about, it all is going to be discussed and debated in an agenda session, and then it will be voted on. This is not developers being cut free to do this. We have no ongoing conversations. We don't have, and that's something I'm happy to disclose, we don't have a single ongoing conversation, nor does the Chamber of Commerce, a serious one, about anybody coming to the site. Because manufacturers realize it's years from having the appropriate infrastructure in place, and at the current time, there's not even funding in the pipeline to fund the infrastructure that would make it
Didn't just ask
necessary.
for that.
So I understand
emails.
that when you hear 871 acres being rezoned into manufacturing, I want you to think about that as the 11 county commissioners and the county mayor who work for you taking control of public land so that we've got max flexibility, and our plans are that a majority of that 871, in addition to the 242 that's already set aside, our plans would be that a majority of the 871, very likely over 500 acres of it, would join the 242 in being recreational. And we're still not talking about what will happen east of 27 or what will happen in the Ray County portion of the South. So we're here to answer any questions. There's a lot of experts from Dan Reuter of the RPA, Todd Lehman, who's the county's administrator of public works, and really the person who ran a lot of the initial diligence on the site before the county acquired it. But it is ours. This site belongs to all of us, and if nothing else, I hope you know the reason I'm here is because we want y'all involved in every part of this, and we want to honor your community with the way that we move forward at McDonald Farm.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt Fools, I'm the park staff. So I took on this role about a year ago, and I think when we first had meetings about the farm, they were talking about a 50-acre homestead box, right? And I'm excited that that box keeps expanding every time we have this conversation. You know, there's a lot of opportunities. You saw what we did at the fair. We put money into the farm itself, and when the mayor talked, can you hear me now? All right. Do I need to go back and restart?
Please do.
I'm Matt Fools. But what I'm excited about is when the mayor talks about phase 2, it's one of those where that's the phase 2 of the park. That's the playgrounds. That's the other components. That's the hands-on kind of discovery center that we do to really honor the agricultural component. There's the Cumberland Trail that we're trying to connect in our area because, you know, there's a lot of value in trail towns and connecting that corridor and outdoor recreation. There is an economic value to agriculture and tourism from an outdoor perspective. I can talk a lot about parks, and I'm going to stay here. You can ask me questions. I really want to open the floor up because you showed up tonight, and that's what I love about this community. Is that, you know, you show up and you care, and passion matters. And if you care about this place, we want to hear about what you'd like to see it turn into. And so I'm open here to answer any questions. I think Nathan and the mayor as well, but I think we're here to hear you because what you feel and want in your community matters. And so Nathan promised. So
You did.
Hi, I'm Zaylin. I'm used to representing the people, no one else. I like nature and I like the parks. So my first question is directed to whomever can answer a clarifying question before I ask my actual question. What is the difference between M1 designation and C2 designation?
So I'm going to struggle through this a little bit. All of this information is extremely well defined on the RPA's website. There's a public document that you can go look at that clearly defines what's allowed in each. But just, I guess, as a general summary, C2 specifically allows for things like office space, restaurants, public pools, and there's a whole list. But it's like sort of light commercial.
Recreational type stuff.
In this case, it will be used for recreational type stuff, yes. And then the M1, again, because our county zoning regulations are so old, there's nothing else in the zoning code that is flexible enough where we might have.
What is it though? Specifically, what does it allow for?
It allows for basically everything that's allowed in every other zone, and then there's a list of things that it excludes. There's maybe 10 or 12 uses that it excludes that you have to have a special permit for. And those exclusions are things that are like noisy or smell bad, like chicken processing plants or acid manufacturers or things that are, detrimental to the community more or less.
So my question here, does C2 allow for manufacturing plants to be built?
No.
Then why are we not rezoning all of it for C2? Why are we going straight for M1?
So, basically, for site certification, they're going to try to market this site in conjunction with us to potential manufacturers, potential corporate headquarters.
But they couldn't market it for manufacturers unless you zone it for manufacturing. So my question, Yeah.
the state Department of Economic Development.
They can't request manufacturing in that place unless it's zoned for manufacturing.
Right.
So why are you zoning it for manufacturing, whether it's 5 years out or 5 days?
Well, I mean, I think there are things within that M1 zoning that we may be open to. It depends on the company. You may have, it's called manufacturing, but you may have a company that all they do is assemble radios for cars.
That's still manufacturing.
It is manufacturing, yes. But I think the mayor may speak more to this, but I think we're open to a low impact manufacturer if they're willing to, put in the right things to come to the site.
Who is we that you're saying is open to that?
I would say county government is open to a potential manufacturer if it fits the community.
But we are not open. That's why we're here. And we're asking you, why not zone it for C2 when you're already zoning part of the property for that, for the community, when M1 is just going to be more financially beneficial for you guys later on?
I want to try to. So she's asking why not just rezone the whole property to C2 instead of some of it M1 and some of it C2. And the best answer that I can give you is that we want the flexibility that if a high-paying manufacturer wants to come to the site and they fit the community well, we want the flexibility to entertain that. Additionally, if we just went with a C2 zoning, the state most likely would not want to invest $40 million in roads to that site.
Hey, everybody, I'm Rebecca Day, also known as Rebecca Howard. I put the survey out on behalf of other people. There's a small group of concerned citizens, and so far we've made it to over 1,000 signatures, so way to go. And I did speak at the RPA at the 1/8 meeting just to ask for the pause on the rezoning for now, because that's what the community is asking, we as a community. And then I just wanted to read a couple of comments, and I have one question. These comments are from the survey. Someone said, we have got to be more aware of the importance of preserving our natural habitats over industrial park growth. Someone else said, we have to pause and consider how best to be good stewards for future generations, not merely look at short-term monetary gains. What price are we willing to pay for not merely looking are we willing to pay for the destruction of the property, which is an asset that belongs to all citizens of Hamilton County now and future generations? There's already plenty of empty leftover manufacturing plots all over Chattanooga. How about the city focus on using those areas already built for manufacturing away from important natural areas? The ecosystem services provided by these 100 acres are key to keeping us healthy, as well as the surrounding environment. And my favorite is, this is a quote from our mayor, the county should take a more cautious approach when it comes to industrial employers. We have a near saturated job market. That was 6 months ago. So my question, as just a private individual citizen, is what changed, Mayor Womp, between now and July? Like, if our job market is saturated, and if you're going to bring in a manufacturer to Sell Creek, which is agriculture, and it's probably only going to end up having hundreds of jobs, not thousands, why can't you, not you, maybe work together with Tim Kelly and do it down in the city?
First of all, there aren't many significant parcels suited for manufacturing left in the city or in the county. It's one of the reasons that some of the gentlemen who are here on the county commission voted to acquire this piece of property. We actually are nearly out of land that can be developed for the purpose to the county alone. It's in excess of $100 million to prepare the site for an industrial tenant. It is totally conceivable that we do our part, and that 15 to 20 years from now, a company ends up there. And that's what I'm telling you about the timeline. It may be long after I'm gone from office, but at this point, a $16 million investment was made in this farm for a primary use of industry. We've tried to come in and breathe at least as much energy and excitement into the recreational use, which is all value add. This was not a recreational site, it was a privately owned site. And while some of you may have been there, you may not have been invited to be there, and now you will be. And we're trying to do it as responsibly as we can. But I'll tell you, this crowd, if there really is, again, that overwhelming sentiment that nothing happened on the farm at all, from farmers markets to, like Nathan said, I mean, one of the things we've considered, certainly we have a hub of a lot of 4-H activity. We're open to the first proper restaurant in Sail Creek being there and being facilitated on what is collectively our land. But I think if we're talking, if the question is just to Katie bar the door against any industry, I wouldn't be honest with you to tell you that that's the plan, because the site was not acquired for $16 million as a park. It was acquired for industry. I'm trying to diversify that vision as much as possible, to the point that we're now talking about as little as 270 acres for development and 1,700 acres for other purposes, a lot of which we believe will be recreation.
I'd like to say one thing about the timing and why the community didn't show up and support. Can you all hear her? That was in the middle of COVID, and we were all sick and all told to stay home. So we did come to 2 community town halls where we did ask that it not be purchased. There was a petition going around for it not to be purchased, but I did want to put a little perspective, not to be disrespectful or anything, but just as perspective is that we were all sick in this community. We were all told to stay home, and there were not many community input sessions held during those times, during the transition from one election cycle into the other. So I would like to just point that out as respectfully as possible, that had we have had these type of input sessions, it would have been a very different outcome, and potentially the county would not have purchased it. That does not have to be industry. It's just not compatible, and it doesn't fit in this community.
Thank you for having this session. I'm Delane. You talked a lot about how much it'll cost to actually even get something prepared for industry. I'm just wondering, I understand that you purchased it for that purpose, but why does it still make sense economically? I mean, I don't want industry going in there, but just from an economic standpoint, how does it still make sense?
Sure. So, Mayor Wamp and I have had discussions around this many times, and I think our approach since last January has been to be as cautious as possible about spending money on the farm itself. Even with our grant ask, we probably could have leveraged even more money from the state if we had been willing to put up $10, $20 million towards, getting this ready for industry. But we didn't feel like at this time there was a good argument to do that. And so, again, going back to what I said at the beginning of this, we felt like it was a good use of taxpayer dollars to try to leverage some of these site development grants that also benefit the park. And so that's what we're doing with water access. I think in total, right now, with a $3 million grant, we have to match that with $1.5 million. But there's other grants that, like ARC grants, that's a federal grant. There's a TVA site, Invest Prep grant. We're looking at those options to maybe even cut the Hamilton County match even lower than that. But it's a good question, and I think we have very similar concerns to you as far as that goes. Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question. I've seen this happen.
We can't hear her.
Sorry. Oh. I'm Donna. I've seen this happen before where I'm from. My former high school actually bought a dairy farm, and in a span of like 10 years, I think is what it took. But we built an amazing high school. It became part of the community. In fact, I wrote Shipley on this, but they ended up turning a lot of the outdoor corridor classes into community, so there ended up being a public library. While it belonged to the school, the community still had access to that. And festival, and it brings in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and it's 3 days to put up with to bring that kind of income in order to help, you know, get to the trajectory for the infrastructure, the sewer, the water, and everything else that you're looking at. And I would be okay with it, and I might be the only one here standing that is okay with this, but we do need to grow. We need to grow. I mean, we have kids in Title I schools. We have, the average income here is what, 65, 70,000 up in this area? A lot of, do you guys realize that the cranes, I saw about the cranes using the pond. The Tennessee River, I live on Sail Creek. I see cranes every day, all day, during the summer, during the fall when they come in. In fact, Lee Pike is part of the tour. I just don't understand why we're, you know, like, cutting ourselves off at the knees and stopping what you could potentially do more. How many of you guys drive to Gatlinburg? How many of you guys all drive to Gatlinburg? No, Gatlinburg, the natural is woven throughout what is money there. I wouldn't be here. If it was not for the low taxes and the money, I wouldn't be here. But there's no reason that in 10 years our kids need to see the growth.
Yeah.
We can all understand that the manufacturing at this point is inevitable and coming. So I guess my questions for Mayor Wong, there's been multiple comments about making sure the right companies come in. That it's only going to be good companies. So what standards are these companies objectively supposed to be held to? What investments are they going to make in the community? If it's coming regardless, how can we ensure that it's not some mass manufacturing plant out of China or something? Like, what are the standards for companies expected to come in?
First of all, you said something along the lines of it's happening regardless. I can't tell you that it's happening regardless. You asked a question about the economics of this sort of investment, $100 million at least in infrastructure. That math might not ever make sense. The state may never be willing to make that kind of investment. That's totally possible. I'm trying to be a caretaker and a steward of the site that was acquired for industry. I'm very excited, I hope you can tell, about the opportunity we got to open it up to the public and to build out park space. I would turn that question back around to y'all, because this is so far out, we have not created, we've kicked around different ideas in the office and with others who love this community.
They've kicked around ideas in the office.
That if there was, and it had to be, for the sake of conversation, some type of company that came here, what type of company would be best?
Are there rules and procedures that will protect us from bad companies already in place, or are we at your mercy?
We can put those in place if you want to. This is one of the reasons that we are having a town hall. Let's talk about it. We're years out. You have every opportunity to petition our office and the county commission to put some of those guidelines in place. Gino Shipley and I have done this at least 3 or 4 times, so we're not hard to get a hold of. We are open to having community meetings like this. We are in no hurry. We're simply walking out. To Nathan's point, the first big investment we made here is water. It's as aligned with the recreational future of the site as it is anything else. You know, we didn't go straight for a road and a bridge to access.
That's a straw man argument. We have to do
part of the site where there would be industry. But to give you an idea, and some of you are familiar with the farm would know this, but when we throw out this $100 million of infrastructure number, a big chunk of that is sewer. The biggest chunk of it probably is that the state, because again, the county can't afford to do it, the state would have to cut a road in, would have a bridge over the rail. It's a long, big, expensive project. To be candid, the economics may never make sense, but we're preparing for the long term. I think another response, you asked about my comments at probably one of these town halls where I said that particularly the manufacturing job market is pretty saturated. Well, it is today, and there's good news coming about other companies in the region that are expanding, but that doesn't mean that it will be 10, 15, 20 years from now, so you can plant seeds, and eventually it may be my kids who make ultimate decisions about what happened, and your kids. I don't think this is something that's coming near term, but we want to hear from y'all about what the types of companies or industry or retail that you'd like to see. Like, you tell us, we're picking up a vision that looked like this when I came into office. This had already been done. This was commissioned by the Coppinger administration. And we have expanded the scope of what we want to be recreation, and we keep expanding it. And in the event that we're around when a company shows up, a big part of that conversation would be, do you fit? And, I mean, because, you know, let me explain this to you differently. All right, I grew up around politics. A lot of y'all have known me for a lot of my life. Politicians, at the end of the day, they do these economic development deals, and they'll get a piece of property, and then like we bring a company in, it's like a notch in our belt. There's no incentive for us to bring a company in here that y'all don't want. Y'all are the voters, right? Nobody down in Chattanooga, to be honest, nobody in Lookout Valley that I know really cares about the future of McDonald Farm one way or the other.
There's
Like,
plenty
they
of
don't want it to be
incentive. You will make money off of it.
That's not true.
Plenty of incentive.
More than half of the petition was signed by people in the city. They care about this property.
Okay, so they don't want to see it developed.
They do not want to see it developed.
You're saying people in the city of Chattanooga signed a petition
Because they love the
for
Cumberland
land not
Trail.
to be developed.
Yes.
I understand.
Yes.
I'm making the point that people in Chattanooga, they're not putting political pressure on any of us to develop this farm. We want to do it, if it happens, in a way that you all are comfortable with. You see what I'm saying? Like the political incentive for those of us who are in elected office would be to impress you all, the people who've given us an opportunity to serve. And so we're not going to come in here and say, look at this tire manufacturer. Aren't you proud of us? Because I can tell this crowd and every other one that I've been in front of in Sail Creek is not going to be very excited. And so what we're trying to do is be candid about the fact that we've got this big asset. For a lot of us on the county commission, it was acquired, on the county commission or in our office, it was acquired before we got here. And it is a long road, and at least I'll speak from my office, we're very skeptical of any rush to develop the site. I hope you can see that. I've been in office for a year and a half. I've spent a lot more time talking about and working on this site being opened up to the public. Matt Foles can tell you that. We've got, to your point, sites in Chattanooga and recruitment efforts in Chattanooga that are underway. But I would tell y'all that this is a step along the process, and the county did buy it under the auspices of it being potentially in the future an economic development site. I'll wrap up by saying I would love to hear from y'all in a future world what type of company would fit in Sail Creek.
I've been here all my life. I raised two boys here. We fish in that creek up here. I've got grandsons now, 4 of them, that we fish in that creek. What's going to happen to that creek water when all that industry comes in here and destroys our creek water? What's going on with that? Okay?
Hell yeah!
That's what I are they going to have a filtration system to come in there and clean our water up that we fished in all our life?
I'm gonna let, if you will, I'm gonna let Todd Lehman answer your question directly because he's an engineer. But before he does, I'm gonna say this about what we're passionate about and what we're working on. On the farm, there's a pond. You familiar with the pond?
I sure am.
We've done a lot of studying on that pond because we've lost some of the structural, or most of the structural integrity of the dam. We're going to be bringing to the county commission a plan that we think is fiscally responsible, but it also honors this community to fix it and to preserve the pond. Pond's going to be part of the park. You go fish in the pond. I know.
I know the pond, yes, sir.
Well, I know, but like my point is, if we were if we were in a rabid rush to develop a farm, we wouldn't worry. We're actually going to go propose that we allocate funds to save the pond.
He's talking about the creek, not the pond.
I know that he's talking about the creek, but I'm talking about a priority of ours that is aligned with, I think, the priorities you keep shouting out and that he shared. And with that, there's a whole lot of EPA standards that you could probably speak to.
My name is Todd Lame. I'm not going to speak to too many standards, but I mean, obviously clean water is a big, important issue with our state of Tennessee and with our federal government. And so anytime you do any type of development, I'll use an example in Enterprise South. We actually move streams, improve streams, and actually conserve areas. There's also numerous streams of EPA regulations and TDEC regulations and building codes and quality codes relative to development of property, and it happens all over where manufacturing or industry or residential development come in. The good thing about this site is there is opportunity for a lot of natural resource areas. Most of the Cell Creek is actually on the west side of Coulterville Road. If you look, most of the manufacturing will be on the other side. There's a lot of buffer. As part of some of the rezoning, there were some buffers that were placed, at least in the conditional zoning, to allow some buffer to adjacent property. So there are plenty of regulations that require responsible development to protect our waters. And so those things will be, whoever looks at developing this, even in the case of some Parks and Rec development, there are certain standards that you have to do relative to water quality and protecting those resources.
Amen. He's saying he likes well water, not city water.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I would like to say, probably along with everyone else here, that I drive at least an hour to work every day, and there's a reason. Because this is our home, it's where our kids are raised, and we drive so we don't have to deal with the industry and all the traffic and the craziness. If we're not planning on doing this soon, then why are we in such a hurry to rezone everything? Can we not pull it and conserve this? We're worried, you're saying it's going to be in the future, but we're worried about that for our kids. We don't want this for our kids because there's not going to be property like this left for them to enjoy, and that's what we want.
Hi, my name is Jim Stewart. Can you hear me okay? I'm a resident of northern Hamilton County, and I'm also the executive director of the Chattanooga Audubon Society, which manages the Audubon Mountain property right here. So I consider all of you my neighbors. I've been personally trying to monitor everything that's being planned for McDonald Farm. Since there was a meeting here, I think it was October 2021. How many people were at that meeting right here? So since that meeting, I've been in touch with the county. I've had good discussions with people in the RPA, county parks, the county commissioner, etc. I even attended the RPA meeting at Sunny Daisy High School in December. I had terrific discussions with the consultants that are being hired to develop plans for the farm. And some of those plans have nothing to do with bringing industry in order to generate revenue for the county. There are many creative things that we've done with recreation to generate jobs, both jobs on the property and in surrounding areas, respecting the natural beauty that's there, leveraging the fact that it's next to the Cumberland Trail. I think already mentioned tonight was the idea of perhaps making this like a trail city along the Appalachian Trail corridor. Those are wonderful tourist destinations that drive huge amounts of revenue without having to put industry on the property. I'll tell you the reason why we're here today is because of the rezoning proposal that was put in front of the Regional Planning Commission on January 8th. Audubon Mountain, including the property owned by the state, is 460 acres right next to the farm. I found out Friday night, January 5th, that there was going to be a meeting on Monday at the Regional Planning Commission to talk about rezoning over 800 acres of our neighbor's property. Over the weekend, I was able to get in touch with half dozen residents from Sail Creek. We showed up at the Regional Planning Commission meeting. We directly said we did not know this was coming. We did not want to see this rezoning proposal come through without public input. Basically, it passed almost unanimously, even though we did not receive notification and there was no public support for this at the Regional Planning Commission meeting. The other thing I'll notice, the previous speakers have said some wonderful things about protecting the natural beauty of the area, creating parks, etc. None of that is in the rezoning proposal. If you read the details of the rezoning proposal, it does not mention anything about using the M1 area for parkland. But the reason why everyone's here is because despite assurances of public input to this plan, we were all surprised by what was presented to the Regional Planning Commission on January 8th. People in this room are not against doing some type of development on the farm. We just want to be part of the process. And we're asking the county again, give us a seat at the table when you make decisions about what's going to happen to the park. Don't create decisions and then just put them out to us at Regional Planning Commission meetings without letting us know what's going on. So please make us part of the process. Consider alternatives to monetizing the $16 million that do not require million square foot manufacturing sites right next to the pond.
That's 22 acres.
There's other ways that we can, the county can make money on this property. They can respect the natural beauty there. Let us be part of the process, and we'll work with you on this. We really will.
But let me speak to the commissioners who were here when the purchase was made, because we were not asked to be involved. I came to any meeting Mayor Coppinger had. He talked the entire time, never let us ask a question. So I'd like, I guess, to hear from the county commissioners who are here, who were there then. Weston wasn't there, Mr. Shipley wasn't there. So if their intention was manufacturing, they didn't listen to us to begin with. So I appreciate that you're going to listen now, but is it a day late and a dollar short?
Look who's here.
I mean, I'm not afraid at all.
This is the city.
Hello, my name is David Sharp. I represent District 6 here in Hamilton County. I had no intention of speaking tonight, didn't prepare anything, but it's never been my intention to be a part of putting additional manufacturing plants in Sail Creek. Okay, is this better? So it was never my intention to expand manufacturing to Sail Creek. I don't know what's out there. I voted to purchase the farm. I voted to purchase the farm. Well, hold on. I can only answer one question at a time. So, why did you vote yes? Because if the business owners in Hamilton County today could give me a 100% guarantee that they will never lay anybody off, that they will always have their doors open, right? Then maybe we're fine. right? We don't need any new jobs. We don't need to evolve into a new economy. But the fact of the matter
There it
is,
is. There it is. There it is.
the fact of the matter is that we can't guarantee any of that.
It's a new economy.
So we need to be prepared as a community to adjust as the economy evolves around us so that we can continue to be a part of that.
That's Marxism.
And the idea, in my mind, would be that over time, just as Mayor Womp suggested, that when opportunity arises, right, we're prepared to capitalize on that opportunity in hopes of obtaining
Socialism.
an organization in this community that will provide substantial living wage jobs for the community
Communism.
to continue to grow, for your children to have jobs, and their children to have jobs.
Children to have the land.
And that's critically important.
What if their job is on the land?
What if
What
there's
if they
nowhere
want to
to
be a
live?
farmer?
That's my answer.
If I wanted to live in a city the size of Atlanta, I'd move there. I like Chubby the size of it is. It's already got me out here. We'll never be it. I remember when it happened.
Hey, so my name's Steven. I'm going to be honest, I don't live in Sail Creek. I live down in Saudi. But my question, I guess, is for everybody. Thank you. My question is for everybody over here, right? Mayor Womp, you say we should have packed the house like we did here. We just did for this thing down in Saudi, both in Saudi and at the county commission. They even moved it up on the docket because there were so many people. Gino even spoke in opposition at the county commission, or county zoning, or whatever it was, and they still voted for it. So we should have packed it. Okay, got it. Then you say, oh, well, you're beholden to us, but you're kicking the can back to the guy before you. Oh, this isn't my fault. He did it, not me. Well, guess what? You're talking about 10 years down the line, you won't be standing there. It'll be someone else. And that guy will be standing here saying, oh, well, it wasn't me that rezoned it to do anything. It was that guy. And the same people will leave after that guy to stop, and he'll blame the guy before him, who will blame the guy before him, right? So how much of this is hot air? How much, everyone just said, what did you vote for? And he said, well, I voted for it, right? Same thing with the zoning down in Saudi. Everyone was against it. We did pack the house. It went through anyway. The guy before him, the Audubon guy, whatever his name was, sorry. Yeah, Jim. I mean, to his point, you guys are passing stuff. You have the community here. The community is saying no. And then you go, okay, cool, and you do it anyway. So, like, how much of this is hot air? Why are we here? Like, well, are you going to listen? 'Cause you're not. Right?
Do you want to be reelected?
I'm J.J. Wallace. I just moved here a little while back from Arizona. And one of the reasons I moved here was because the people here take care of themselves. Back in Arizona and back in some of the other places, politics anymore isn't, we vote people in to represent the majority of the people and what they want. That has gone away. It doesn't exist anymore. One of the reasons I moved out here was because of the people here in Tennessee take care of themselves. So, my question here is, are you really going to listen to us, or is this just, you know, you just fanning the flame? I don't know.
We're here to listen. I mean,
I hope so.
Yeah.
Put it close to your mouth. Put it close to your mouth.
Hear me now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most everybody knows who I am. I'm Manny Jacobs. Been here my whole life. One thing I ain't heard nothing about. Y'all say y'all got all this recreation. How much of that is going to be able to be used in ag?
Agriculture.
Right now, there's about 600 acres of that might be able to use for gold, and that we're planning to do that. And so, once because it doesn't we harvest before that right there, and so that was but what I see as the homestead, and what I appreciate about this is that if you look at the old Croy drawings, and you look at that little box around the farm, like, the box is getting bigger for what recreation is going to be, and for protection that agricultural components. So I'm the park guy, so you're asking the park guy. You know, I mean, I think Jennifer can speak to like I've battled, and sorry your son couldn't come tonight, because he's got a competition.
He's here.
But the idea is that it's going to have an agricultural component, whether that's 4-H, whether that's future farmers. We want to promote that because we want that to be that kind of living museum. It's an active working farm that we can, you know, spark other generations. Maybe it's someone in the city. They take a bus ride up there and they've never seen, you know, they live on a postage stamp lot. And they get to get out there and they see the open space, and they see the animals, and they see where their food comes from. And maybe not all of them from farmers, but they do have more of a respect for what farming does. And so that's the goal, that as long as I have any part in this, there's going to be a farm and an agricultural component.
My name's Ed Snodgrass, and I live in Sale Creek. Large tracts of land have been sold along the river and near my house for $6-8 million. And to me, the $16 million sale for this was a very reasonable price for McDonald Farm. And the county had the idea that it might be used as an industrial development to make millions of dollars in revenue. My thought is, why can the county not say, instead of spending $100 million to totally tear into this land for roads and infrastructure, etc., and then bringing in manufacturing that these people don't want, why can Hamilton County commissioners who spent the money, I think, a good price, why can they not say, well, we thought it would be an industrial park, but in reality, now that we've done this study and we know how much it's going to cost and the impact it's going to have on the environment and the voters who do not want it here, it's not going to be an industrial park. We do not need manufacturing, but we still have this great asset, which could be subdivided because the county commissioners right now basically developers.
Yep.
It's no different from a commercial developer trying to have best use for the land. But the commission has the luxury of not having to make hundreds of millions of dollars in future manufacturing. The commission has the luxury of providing a service for the community. And that's what the recreation centers in Chattanooga, that's what the other park areas in Chattanooga do. They don't make money. They're there for the community members who are paying property taxes and wanting those services. So real simple, the county commission says it's a great site. We made a good deal for $16 million, but from further study, we feel that manufacturing is not the primary focus that should be put on this piece of property. We can have the farm, nice area for the county fair. We can have maybe even some agriculture areas that could be leased out. We can have, even if you wanted to do it responsibly, some small acreage homesteads developed in it through private investment that wouldn't have the same impact. It would be a little nice 2-lane road. They could have water now or a well. It doesn't have to be an industrial park. And the commission can say, their head held high, we listen to the people, and we don't need it for $100 million, but we can develop it in a way that will make everybody happy.
And that's my job as the parks guy, to show the value of it as a park asset for the community and as an economic driver. We just opened Walden's Ridge Park. That's got about $1 million economic impact to the region, and that's 12 miles of trail. I'm sorry, yeah. I feel you can hear it, but my goal would be is, as the parks director, to show the economic value of this as a park. It's an amenity and an asset financially for the community. If there's a way to tie in with the Cumberland Trail, to show that and generating that tourism dollars, Because the more that we can show the value of that, whether it's equestrian, whether it's biking, hiking, there's value in just the land. And to his point, I mean, 2,800 acres, right, for $16 million. Land, your dad always said, buy land. They're not making more.
Yep.
And so the idea is that having that as an asset, and I really want to stress this because I've been to a lot of these RPA meetings and some of the planning board meetings where the developer, if it's zoned for that, they can do what they want with it, right?
Hell yeah.
We can talk all we want, but what I like is that this is yours. Like, the county commission bought this for you. And the idea is that, like, nothing happens without a discussion, without multiple votes. And so I know you don't feel like your voice is heard and that this might just be an empty exercise. But
he's
this
gonna
is
lose
real.
his job
The point is
tomorrow.
to show up and let your voice be heard because they're standing here. Like, what is this? We all can be home with our families, but we're here and they're listening to you. And so I think that take the time and use that valuable resource to let them know what you want. And once again, you have a say because it's a voting process, not a developer doing what they want with land.
Hi, my name is Jim Johnson. I am from North Chattanooga. Last time I checked, that's part of the county. And I'm retired 2 years ago. And most of what I do now is advocacy for trails, greenways, parks. And I guess one question is, what's the hurry? Why don't we have some charrettes? Why don't we have some planning meetings? We're coming to meetings and being told what is about to be decided or has been decided. Why not step back a little bit and say, yeah, we want this to be recreation, we want this to be parks. I can sit down with you and talk to you about what they do in 20 countries in Europe. I've been working for the State Department in the Balkans, trying to help economic development in the Balkans as a way of stabilizing economies and keep people from killing each other. I can come from North Chattanooga to Sail Creek and do the same thing. Well, you're not all trying to kill each other. But what is keeping you from just taking a couple steps back and saying, let's spend a few months doing listening like this, but in maybe an organized fashion. The other thing is, Mayor, I think you said that if you had been in office at the time, you might not have spent the $16 million. So what we have now is what, 270, 280 acres potentially for development? How much do you want for it?
Or is it valuable?
One thing I wanted to add that I just didn't include earlier is that most of you are aware that we're going through an area planning process that'll give us more information about what is appropriate for every area in the county. And we've tried to be really transparent with that process and come out and talk to you guys about that process, and we're going to continue to do that. But as part of that process, a consultant has been hired to do an economic impact analysis of the property and to really dive into the cost-benefit analysis of, if you put a manufacturer there, do you get a return on investment? Or would it be better to be, for us to put a Dollywood out there? Or is it better for us to have only recreation opportunities out there? So that information is forthcoming. I think we're supposed to have something in February. So.
Thank you. My name is Laura Marsh. I'm a biologist and a conservationist. And I do want to say right off front, I can't imagine being a politician. It seems very challenging. I know bipartisanship is what we're all aiming for. So just thank you for your service and the work you're doing. I know you're trying your best to listen. So we appreciate that. Thank you. So first I wanted to ask if anyone knows what the city of Chattanooga is doing with the National Park City, and there's information about that. So I'll just briefly recap. If you're not aware, the National Park City is a movement, a global movement that started in London, and the concept is to bring more national park greenery, infrastructure, health, and well-being for our cities because of green spaces. So as a conservationist, I see the value in natural landscape. I'm not talking about putting the same tree over and over again, but truly rich, biodiverse ecosystems, which ecosystem services was a term mentioned briefly, but ecosystem services is the term that the environment gives to us for free. So the pollination control, wetland control, groundwater recharge, all sorts of benefits that the earth just provides to us for free. So we wouldn't have to pay for someone to do an environmental impact statement, to rewire our streams and things like that if we just kind of left it alone and let the earth do what the earth does. So all that to say, within the National Park City concept, which the city of Chattanooga is adopting, currently we are the first city in the Western Hemisphere, I believe, to adopt this global movement. And my question to you, Mayor Wong and others, would be, do we want to evolve as a community and see how Europe has done things, how Australia has done things, and how they're changing and growing? Or do we want to de-evolve and go back to old ways of economics that aren't really being utilized anymore? This is an evolution process that we can have. We can grow. And we have a choice right now for all of us as a community to make these decisions, to evolve and to grow our cities in a healthier, greener, more beneficial way. I teach forest bathing, which is literally going into the forest and healing our mental health, our well-being, looking at trees, looking at birds. There's science that shows being next to nature heals our bodies and ourselves. So all of that to say, I just want to ask questions. Are we willing to evolve or de-evolve?
I'm going to make a couple points. It's been a good discussion. To your point about why don't we take a step back, I think my team has taken a step back. I think that's what we've done. I think 2 years ago, I was in this gym, and Mayor Coppinger was full steam ahead, and we have taken, I'd say, several steps back. I think you all might like me a little more if you had heard, if you could eavesdrop on the conversations I've had with the commissioner, the governor's right-hand man who leads economic and community development, because I've told him plainly, and all the local or regional state officials, I've told them the people of Sail Creek don't want the site to be developed, right? I've held them at bay to say, we're going to go focus on recreation. We will take appropriate steps, making investments, and see where the future takes us. But we have taken those steps back, I think, in ways that may not be clear based on, and I don't want to in any way minimize that the 871 acres to M1 comes across as something different than it is. I hear you. Like, we're all here because we do want to listen, and I certainly say for Commissioner Highlander or Chairman Eversole, who drove from one side of the county, I drove up from the other side of the county, that's why we're here. Another bit of evidence that we've taken those steps back is we've got very firm cost estimates on what it would take to prepare the site for industry, right? I told you that number is way north of $100 million. If we were in a hurry, or even actively moving towards some type of industry recruitment, we wouldn't have just put a $5 million grant application in the state for water. We would have gone and asked for tens of millions to do the rest of it.
No,
we're not.
they're rezoning,
we don't have means
so the state can put the land
one
out
last
on a
point, I think this is
side
real important. This
for people
site
to
was
purchase.
listed for sale by owner by a family that had held it for a century and a half, but they were done with it. Family was selling it.
It's like the state
There's a
website
strong
where they
argument
put industrial sites out.
that the county stepping in gave all y'all a voice. Because even under current zoning, just the Hamilton County portion of this could have been scooped up by a developer, and 2,000 or 3,000 houses could have come in, and none of us would have been able to stop it. Not me, not y'all. But right now, we're in a position where we're talking about fairs and parks, and before 1 acre of this land is sold to any company, it has to go before a body in the light of day, and all of y'all have a voice in that. Not to mention, we're telling you very transparently what the timeline is and how we're communicating to state officials. So do keep in mind that this 2,100 acre tract, 3/4 of which is in Hamilton County,
easily could have fallen into the wrong hands and the population of Sail Creek could have doubled overnight. That's not what happened. If anything, you got county government here trying to do right by this community and think about the future, and no doors are closed. I mean, I'd say that. Is it Ms. Simpson? Yeah, you asking, is it $1 day late, $1 short? No, I don't think it is. We're all here listening to you. One of the things I've said. What's that? One of the things I've said on the record is that if we go and buy land that is going to be owned by our community with tax dollars that have been saved over the years, that's not the worst way to use tax dollars. Purchase money that we all, it's purchase land that we all collectively own, and that's where we're at. And there's a process in place that for any major investments here, certainly any transactions here, we got to go through all these processes that are in place in the state of Tennessee that require a lot of disclosure. And I can say to you that even though M1, you can create the monster, that means there's some industry coming here immediately. Realistically, what it does is it gives us the most flexibility to go be creative with the land that we've bought and our plans we've laid out to you. We're excited for you to be able to go to the farm on your own in March, and even more excited to lay out our plans for recreation there in the future. But this could have gone one very, very different way, and we're here to talk to y'all about what y'all want to see happen at the farm, and we're not hell-bent on any one direction.
Wait until you get the... You need the microphone.
Say it again in the mic. We want to hear you.
I'm saying that if you guys are coming in here, like your response to that was that somehow we're supposed to feel worse if the developer would have came in and built 2,000 houses. Like, developers have to maintain rules and regulations. You guys a lot of times get to rock and roll.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel a lot more worried about, government coming in and being able to just buy land. I mean, it feels so much like eminent domain to me.
Matt, this lady's had her hand up for a very long time. This lady right here. Get in that microphone.
Yes, I think y'all said we have 600 acres that toward in Wright County.
Yeah.
Okay, are we responsible to develop that land, and do we get the tax dollars, or do they do that? How does that work? Because we own the land.
So it's because of the location of the property. There, no matter what happens on this property, most likely Ray County will see some benefit from it. Meigs County may see some benefit from it. Bradley County may see some benefit from it because, if people work at the farm, they're not going to probably just live in Hamilton County. And the same situation is true with the property tax. The property tax for the portion in Ray County would go to Ray County.
But do we have to develop it?
No, we don't have to do anything.
Okay. But if we did develop it,
If we
does
did-
Ray County get the...
So the way that would work is if that parcel, and really, so if you look at your map again, there's an orange line. That's the Hamilton County line. North of that or above that is Ray County. Below that is Hamilton County. This yellow portion right here is really the only parcel that has room in Ray County that's even suited for something, considered large-scale development. So you're talking about a very little portion of it that would be really even developable in Ray County. Most of the part that's in Ray County is extremely steep, full of streams, probably not suitable for industrial development.
No, I wasn't going to do this. Tanya died. I grew up in Saudi Daisy and spent a lot of time in the creeks. even parked at Gino's house to walk into the creek, because back then there wasn't a parking lot to do that. Spent a lot of time on the trails, and a lot of us that have grown up here, we want to keep it that way for future generations. And you know, we don't want another Enterprise South on this side of the river. And that's just, we're talking about highways and bypasses and all that. We just don't want that up here. But I do have a question. If the issue is that Hamilton County zoning is messed up, why not focus on cleaning up the zoning regulations instead of telling us the land has to be rezoned to get grants?
So that's a great question. It does need to be fixed, and we're in the process of doing that. We actually started that process even before we started, looking at grants for McDonald Farm. That is encompassed in our area planning process, and we are diligently working on that. We hope to have, a very up-to-date zoning code within, what do you think, Dan? The next 2 months, 3 months, we'll have a draft. And that draft will go before county commission, and then they'll get to decide whether to adopt it or not. But we are working on that as well.
I got you. Yeah.
I'm Deborah Warren. I think everybody in here probably knows who I am. My first question is, I've heard rumors, so I want this to be talked about, is what are y'all going to do about the sewage? We're all on septic tanks, and somehow we have a big apartment complex going up without sewage. So what are y'all going to do about that situation? And two, him talking about the creek, did y'all know that we have freshwater jellyfish in our creek? And if you want proof, 8 years ago, it was on Facebook. My son caught some, put it in a jar, and put it all over Facebook, so people would know that they are here, and they need to be protected at all costs.
Yeah, so, the preliminary engineering reports looked at a couple options for sewer. Obviously, right now, pretty much all of Hamilton County's sewer system that's run by the WWTA goes all the way down to Chattanooga for processing. The terrain between here and Saudi Daisy is pretty rough. There's a lot of rocks, a lot of hills. And so it's very, very cost prohibitive to go south. The most likely scenario is that if we were to continue along this path, Dayton is going through a process at their sewage treatment plant because of the consent decree that they're under with the EPA. They're expanding their plant, and they've got extra capacity that they're not currently using. So to address sewer, we would basically send it up to Dayton. No, not at all. It's a similar thing that WWTA is going through, where there was some illegal discharges, some overflows that the EPA is requiring them to address.
But the sewer is not going to pass.
Correct.
Hey, my name is Mel. I'm a South Creek resident. I'm sure none of you know me. But I want to ask a clarifying question from something that was said earlier. So, an earlier question was, why do we need this M managed zoning? Why can't we just have the C zoning that would be a lot gentler on the environment? And the reason for that, my understanding, is that in order to build the road infrastructure that would support the C zoning, we need money from the state, and the state won't give us that money unless we have the M zoning. Is that right? That's right. And then if so, is there a minimum that we could reach? Be like, well, the state says we have to have 100 acres of M in order to get the grant. Is that the situation? And I did promise something.
Yeah, I'll get you. So basically, the the state likes to see as much flexibility as possible because they want to be able to market it to as many potential, industries as possible. And so they prefer the M1. If we did a C2 on the entire site, the ways in which it would limit us is that we probably would receive less money from the state. They're going to be less likely to build a road back there. We also would be limited to maybe, I'd have to go back and look in the zoning code, maybe Dan knows off the top of his head, but I don't even know that a large scale like corporate headquarters type of thing could even go in C2. I think it would probably be something, we'd have to probably go to a higher impact even than C2 to put something like that there. C2 is really more what you see like, even in downtown Sail Creek, like right out here past the school, where you have a mix of businesses and churches, and that's sort of the normal of what C2 looks like in Hamilton County. And so it just limits your possibilities. And like I stated earlier, say Matt wants to get really creative and he wants to start doing, maybe he wants to put a mini golf course out, in the woods somewhere for the community to enjoy. That's not even allowed in the C2 zoning. It's only allowed in M1. And there's several other examples of things like that that would not be allowed in anything but an M1.
So stupid.
Most of y'all may know me. My name is Adam Presley. I'm the president of Saddle Pals Riding Club, Saudi Daisy, and I have been to all these meetings. Commissioners, my question is, and then I'll use this map as we're going along, because I understand that we own a lot of property. We as Hamilton County, not we as anyone else, just all of us, all right, own that property that is on the east side of 27. And there is quite a bit of it right there. And it's going to be zoned for commercial use, such as gas stations, restaurants, Dollar General stores, Family Dollars. It needs to be. Because there's a lot of land right there that we can sell on that road to pay the $16 million that we paid for all of this. Then we wouldn't need this. We wouldn't need the manufacturing taking over. I spent 4 days at that county fair in a horse trailer, waking up every morning to a beautiful sunrise and going to bed every evening with a beautiful sunset. Other than the train coming by every 20 minutes, everything else was wonderful. I was the only person on the property after midnight other than the lady that lives there. Peace and quiet. It was gorgeous. But I was able to sit right there and see these mountains, and not smokestacks, not buildings, not concrete, not nothing. This right here is enough property that we could sell to pay to keep from this having to be used. This section here is also up in that area. We could, I can see building some buildings up there, building some, manufacturing facilities there. It's right at the railroad tracks. There's plenty of space to get over there to it. All right, that is fine. This and this little spot down here by the Audubon area and everything. This road right here, there's some houses. I know some people that live on that road. All right, and to get back into that area, that railroad track, I can't get my horse trailer over that railroad track because of the hump. All right, so I know tractor trailers and stuff, they're going to have to redo all that. We don't need this on this side of the railroad tracks. That needs to be horse trails, agriculture, farming use, a mini golf course. I don't care. All right, I'm still waiting on the horse trails that I was promised 2 years ago. All right, but we can do it by using this right here on 27 and selling that property and keeping this. So everybody that comes to that farm for their wedding does not have that in the background.
Just to address that just a little bit, there is potential here, and if you look at this map, this the rezoning map, you'll see that there's already some commercial zoning there along the road that's existed probably since zoning was created in Hamilton County. So there is some opportunity right there along 27 for us to develop that into some revenue generating opportunities. And then I just want to make a point. Jim and I have talked about this at length. I don't even know, Jim, how many times we've been on the phone this week. Probably at least 5 or 6.
I think so.
We've really been trying to communicate and work through this as much as possible. And I want to apologize too. You know, the zoning notification system is not perfect. When a rezone goes out, the way that we deal with that is that we look at the tax assessor map and we try to send every adjacent resident, and that's a resident that their property touches the property that's being rezoned. We try to send a letter out to every adjacent landowner. In this case, it sounds like the address that was listed with the property assessor was not correct, and so it sounds like you didn't get a notification. But I also want to stress, and this is something Jim and I have talked about at length this week, and he disagrees with me, and that's okay. But the M1 zoning does not determine what happens on that site. Sure, it does open up possibilities, but it doesn't just open up manufacturing possibilities. It also opens up recreational possibilities. And so I want to make sure you understand that. And you know, I would encourage you as a government official. I don't make these decisions. I'm going through a process that I think is beneficial to the area, but I don't make the decision. I don't make the final decision. I take things before I talk to the mayor, and then I take things before the county commission and make the final decision. And so I would just encourage you to continue to communicate with your commissioner and the other commissioners on how you feel about the property.
There's a young gentleman up here. Very patient.
My name is Bo, and I've been living in this county for as long as I can remember. And as a teenager with many years to live in this county and a couple more years before I have to provide for myself, and y'all talking about jobs and the amount of money it's going to take to possibly build on that property. What if, instead of just selling it to somebody to build stuff and machinery and plants on, why don't we use the farm for its intended purpose, and we can give people in this county those jobs at the farm as the ranch hands, there's certain phrase I'm looking for. But why don't we give the people in this county those jobs to help provide, and we can sell those products that we create on that farm to Hamilton County by Hamilton County. We can have our own brand almost, possibly, by the county. Instead of having to develop over all of that beautiful land, we can have some of it dedicated to the Hamilton County Fair. We can have some of it dedicated to those parks and rec things. We can have some of it dedicated to the extracurricular activities we can do, and have most of it dedicated to actual jobs and production from the cows that used to be on the farm and all those animals. We can use those products that were once created by that farm and help provide the funds to keep that farm going. Thank you.
My name is Bill Ball. I'm a retired consultant for PricewaterhouseCoopers and with the Sierra Club. I'm here to tell you that if the state spends $100 million on improvements for this property and they market to the industry, they are not going to care a whole lot about what you and me and anybody in Hamilton County thinks. Right now, Tennessee has excellent water protection, much better than federal laws. Standing right here, your representatives and senators they have like 5 bills to reduce this to the minimum allowed by federal law. So this thing about, earlier they said, we got great protections, we got them now, but that is probably going to end. So all of these creeks going through there that you're worried about aren't going to be protected by a law that has been rescinded to go to the bare minimum. So keep that in mind. Be worried about your water.
Yep.
So every one of these economic development grants comes with a contract from the state, and we have not seen what's in those contracts yet. We were just awarded the $3 million last week, but
You don't care what's in the contract?
We will be diligent. We haven't seen the contract yet. They haven't sent it to us yet. But we're going to be diligent in looking at that contract and making sure that we're not tied to anything that we don't want to be tied to.
Oh dear.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. David Avorn. I'm a Hamilton County resident. I am a wildlife biologist with UTC specializing in birds. I'm also the past president of the Chattanooga Audubon Society. A number of times this evening I've heard talk about doing an economic assessment of the manufacturing that could potentially go in and determining how much revenue it can generate, et cetera, And I think you're going about it backwards. I think what you need to do first is look at the economic value of the natural resources first. What Laura was saying about ecosystem services. So how much money is saved by flood control that you might lose when you develop. I mean, there's a wetland in Chattanooga at Woodland Park Baptist Church that was degraded, and they hired a consulting firm to try and restore it, and it's certainly better, but it never returned to the biodiversity and the other benefits that it had prior to the degradation. I've heard a number of people talk about the sandhill cranes. Well, sandhill cranes are one of the species that I study. And back in 2012, I did a survey to estimate the economic benefit of the Hiwassee Crane Festival. And just the 2 days of the festival, just that Saturday and Sunday, generated $50,000 to $100,000 into the regional economy, with people buying gas, staying in hotels, going to see the attractions in Chattanooga, et cetera, And we could have crane viewing sites here on the property, and generate revenue that way. So I think we need to look at it from that perspective first, before we start laying foundations and building plans, etc.
We'll get to you. I'm going to take maybe 3 or 4 more questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to your local commissioner, Gino Shipley. I do want to say on the economic analysis portion of it, they're not coming at it from the scope of manufacturing. They're taking the property and the natural resources that it contains, the surrounding area, the job market. They're looking at everything, and they're going to give us 1 or 2 options of what they think the best cases are to benefit the county and the residents the most. And so I think they're encompassing a lot of what you talked about.
Hi, my name is Emily. I think you've heard a lot of dissenting opinions, and I just want to know, do you intend to actually pause this process after hearing all of the dissenting opinions, or do you intend to push this forward? Yeah.
So it's not up to me. We will have that conversation. I don't know legislatively off the top of my head if we can even pull the resolution at this point, or if that's something that we'll have to, I don't know, we'll have to discuss that. But that's not my decision.
Does the mayor have the answer to that? Because he's sitting right here.
You don't know if you can pull the resolution.
Politics.
Oh, he doesn't want to answer it. Sitting down there.
Hi, Charles Young here. I grew up in Sunny Daisy. Hike Cumberland Trail a lot. It's absolutely gorgeous. 100 years ago, it wasn't the case. All that area was strip mined, coal. I don't think we've learned our lesson because, I mean, for example, one little thing, what's the light pollution at night going to do?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's so many things to consider, and this land's just now being revealed. And we're just going to screw it all up again.
So I noticed that you've identified kind of like the prime industrial spots in the area, which is a few hundred acres. Okay. I've noticed you've identified the prime industrial spots within those 800-ish acres. And I was wondering, if you've already identified that, why have all of that area to the west zoned as M1? Why not go ahead and create like a concrete preserve of the nature? I just see this as a way to allow for all of it to eventually be developed, like I've seen in a lot of other parts of Tennessee.
That's a good question. You know, I think we could have parceled this up a lot of different ways. We could have, you know, I really, my goal in this process was to give Matt the best flexibility as far as how he would build out his park. And obviously M1 gives you a blank slate. You can do almost any park activity within an M1 zoning. You could probably do almost just as much in a C2 zoning. There's a few things that are excluded, like I said, any kind of golf. For whatever reason our zoning code specifically excludes golf. But my thought process was just to give Matt the most flexibility as possible. And we don't know, I guess we don't know until we get to the point where we talk to an industry, you know, how those areas will shape. You know, it may be that that they want to create their own park as a part of the amenity of the building right next to the creek or something like that. And then, you know, you may take some of the prime industrial space and then use it for park on the back end. So that was really the point of just going ahead with an M1, is that it gives us the most options to do what we want to do with the property.
All right, we've learned a lot tonight. Y'all don't trust government?
That's right.
And probably for good reason.
Yep.
Transparency in the issue. So me and the mayor stood over and talked about it a minute ago. I don't know everything here, but I know some. Miss Day, I know her. She's pretty active in this community. Jennifer's Law, very active. So what we think to clear up transparency and get it all forward is about 5 people. We don't need dozens. We never would get nothing done.
Gino, get in that microphone.
But Jim Stewart, I've worked with Jim how many years now? 4, 5 years. Jim's a hard worker, he'll go at things. So Jim, if you would pick you 4 people, you're with the Audubon Society, 4 people, you 4 people's got to be willing to put time in this in order to give feedback to Nathan, Matt, and the mayor's office. That's the only way I know we do this. It's never going to be perfect, right? I wasn't in on buying. I don't know what I'm agreed about. But what we got can be a great thing. But we got to work together and 100 different items on Facebook. So you pick 4 people and you get 4 good ones. And then let's work toward the process, okay? Are you willing?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
First, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
First of all, this is exactly what we would like to have, a seat at the table. Does this mean the rezoning proposal, as it's written now, is still going to move forward before we can get together and speak with you?
Mayor, you want to pull it for tomorrow or leave it?
Well, the mayor's not listening.
You want to pull it for tomorrow or leave it?
February 14th.
All right.
Do you want to pull it for February 14th?
We will let you know on that.
As a mayor, you can pull it if you wanted to. You have responsibility and accountability to all of these people. Don't keep shirking it because of the administration that came before you.
If you didn't notify the adjacent property within 15 days properly, don't you have to pull it because you didn't do that properly?
So I'll have to look into that. I mean,
We'll look into it. We will definitely look into it.
I don't know who owns the PO box, but we'll find out. I mean, you've got the PO box.
It's the public record of what is the Audubon Society if you go to the tax assessors. So they're a nonprofit, so they don't get a tax bill. But if they did, that's where it would go. So they've got to, that's what them in the tax assessors.
So I'll work with you. I'll work with you and see what.
It's not our P.O. box. I don't know how that P.O. box got in there.
Have you ever pulled anything, commissioners, have you ever pulled anything like this? Like, have you ever had something at the RPA that they voted to approve and then you pulled it? Like the school board does, where they just say, while they're talking and discussing, they say, we don't want to vote on this, we don't have enough information, let's talk about this next month. I mean, have you ever done that to any other? Okay.
Whoever owns the resolution can pull it.
Okay.
When you look at the side of it, it's got the owner.
So who owns this resolution?
That person can pull it.
Do you?
This doesn't have a resolution because it's not advertised. This just made this month went to the planning commission, comes to the county commission on month of February. So it doesn't have, it's not been entered into as a resolution.
Would it be Gino since he's District 1?
No. Planning, all the zoning comes in under.
I think it comes in through the RPA, but
That's what RPA, so you
we'll
just
simply look into it.
identify
Okay, I'm going to take 2 more questions. I'll get to you, and then I'll get to you. That's all I have.
Real quick, something that I want everybody to be aware of, and I want to know that the commission and RPA is aware of this, because I've dealt with this process with something that I was disputing in Middle Valley. They put in plans for this, they passed a zoning measure for this private airplane that's going to be going in. It's going to be emitting lead from the air right next to a sports facility where a bunch of children play every summer, okay? So something that I noticed is going on here is there's 3 steps to this process. There's the RPA one that you go to, okay? And every one of those people, as far as I understand, that's sitting on that board is appointed by the mayor. Half of it is appointed by Kelly, and half of it is appointed by Wong, okay? And then they're doing their research to figure out, as long as the rules are being followed, I think we're just gonna go with what the mayor would like us to do, because he's who's appointing us, okay? And then it goes to this next level, right, where the commission is basically just following whatever the guideline was that RPA gave them. And even if we, the people, are stepping up to the podium, which I did that day, and bringing things to their attention and complaining about it, they're saying, thank you for coming, we heard what you said, you totally took your opportunity just then to use the power that we've afforded you, but we're going with what RPA said, and they're all appointed by the mayor. So I see that as the mayor having conflict of interest, basically. I mean, and that's the first thing I know is going through that process. RPA's got so much power. They're appointed by the mayor. That's a lot of power to the mayor. And we don't really have an opportunity to talk to them. Like, here's another example. They showed up to that meeting where they were going to talk about that airport. And somebody other than me that knew about it said, what is the update on this airport that's about to go in? And they said, we haven't really heard too much about that. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but maybe at the next meeting we can talk about it. Like, days later, they were making the choice on that. And I raised my hand at that meeting and said, y'all, if you don't go this week, this is already going to be decided. So why are y'all not informing us properly also is what I want to know.
I'm not going to answer all your questions, Steph. We'll let Nathan do that. My name is Jeff Ebersole. I'm the county commissioner for District 10, which is on the other side of the river. I left last night to get here tonight. So. The question came up is, and you said it, as a county commissioner, do we have to vote for what the RPA says? The answer is no. I have many times voted against what the RPA says because I have Ooltewah. Ooltewah is a train wreck.
Yep, and we don't want to be at
My
Ooltewah.
sophomore year of being a commissioner, I didn't get to vote for this place. Okay, but my opinion is for the Ooltewah section, I've got to be able to vote on what's right for my area, my district, number one. Then number two, what's right for the county. Okay, the constituents in District 10 who voted me into office, they're the ones that hold me accountable. But I've also got to look at what's good for the county as a whole. So I don't follow the RPA's lead. I don't follow the mayor's lead. I follow what's right, in my opinion, for my district, and I follow what's right for the county. Just like the mayor doesn't follow the commission lead. Just like the RPA doesn't follow the commission lead. But we have to make a decision, and sometimes it goes against the grain, that's best for our district and for Hamilton County.
Okay, but, I don't know for sure that you showed up for all those decisions.
What decisions?
The ones you were referring to when you voted against the RPA's decision.
I did. I even stood up at the RPA meeting and said, no, it's not right.
But where was my commissioner when they...
Can't answer that. I only speak for me.
I know. My representative wasn't even there to listen to what I have to say.
That's how...
represent other sections that make the choice.
That's how the process is set up, is there's 11 commissioners. I'm happen to be blessed that my peers voted me in to be the chairman this year, okay? But I represent not just my district, I represent the whole Hamilton County, just like my peers represent their district and the county as a whole. I think part of the system is when you look at how government works, okay? And I'll be honest with you, I never thought I'd say government and associate my name with it. But how government works is you look at Congress. You don't have just the congressman from their district that gets to vote on what's right for their district. That congressman has to go out and has to talk to his or her peers and say, this is what's right for my district. And they have to rely on their peers listening to them on what's right or wrong for their district. That's democracy. That's how the process works. Unfortunately.
Now, that's the problem. We're asking you a question. Can this be removed from the February 14th vote?
I cannot remove it from the February 14th vote because it's not been added.
Okay, so then.
So,
Who,
you mean added to the,
who can keep it from getting added?
I don't create anything.
We've got to find out who can keep it from getting added. I mean, they're just talking out of both sides of their mouth.
That's not how it works. RPA adds their stuff. WAMP adds his stuff. Eversole adds his stuff when he's got things to be added, just like Shipley adds stuff that he wants to be added.
So can Dan Reuter keep it from getting added? Like, we need to know who can keep it from getting added.
So if I could just say, Dan, go ahead.
RPA is not who votes on it. RPA is me. And so I'm the staff. The Regional Planning Commission
are appointed by the city and county mayors, and at the commission, the guys and girls, there's women and men on there, they're the ones that are voting. And that's the way it works in just about every local government in America. You have a planning commission, and you have elected officials. The planning commission is totally advisory. I tell people all the time, ignore them if you want. They don't make any decisions. It all goes to the elected officials. So it is the regional planning commission.
They decided not to approve the dirt track. I mean, they did decide to deny the dirt track.
Sorry.
Hey, I'm Savannah Keaton with Cumberland Trails Conference, and I know we're kind of talking about government and things like that, which I'm not necessarily a part of, but my agenda is to advocate for the Cumberland Trail, which some of you may know, we run across Walden Bridge up here. We're getting very close to being at completion of this, so I just hope that whenever we're talking about this area, that we are considering the viewshed of the Cumberland Trail, so that this area will be you know, a great place, a tourist destination. Because there's an economic impact, as we've seen with the Appalachian Trail, of a long-distance hiking trail. So I don't know all about zoning and things like that, but what I do know is when people go to be outdoors, they don't want to see a giant factory. So.
Yes.
I'm going to get the last question, please.
I wanted to ask to find out what is the impact going to be like on property taxes, water, and everything else on top of that. And to give it an olive branch, it was asked it was our idea for the industrial and commercial. What is y'all's idea of industrial and commercial type of businesses that are going to be in there? And I want to hear something about that, but I haven't heard anything about what's that going to cost us on top of this being built, and to what end. If this is the beginning stages of between now and 10 years, what's going to be after that? How far and how big is this going to grow on top of all this? This is just a start. This is a stepping stone right here.
Yeah, I was looking at this for y'all, just that was kind of interesting. That map right there is about the size of my thumb up there. I mean, it's like this area right here is that this little part of the county line.
It still matters.
Oh gosh, yes, it matters. Every darn acre in this county matters. And so absolutely, I'm just saying that's what we're talking about is right there. And so honestly, the question was, you know, what happens with taxes? Well, a lot of folks don't realize most of your taxes are paid by commercial businesses. I mean, industrial sites. Commercial and non-residential stuff pays a lot of taxes because they don't have any children. There's no children coming out of the Volkswagen manufacturing facility every day. So in theory, those commercial uses pay a lot bigger share, and then the residential, you know, we pay taxes too, obviously, but we all have a lot of kids in the schools, and that's where most of your tax dollars go, is the public schools. So the one thing I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, you know a lot more about it than me, but I would just say, I tell folks every day, there is 45,000 kids in our public schools, another 10,000 kids in the other schools, and 25,000 folks in technical schools and vocational schools. And so there's going to be a need for jobs here for the rest of our lives. What question do you have?
So I guess to try to answer you more directly, obviously an industry would pay taxes. And then I guess you were talking about, you know, maybe tax rates. Are you talking about
property tax up, how you look at it, right?
Any development adds value, so yes, most likely. Well, it depends on what we did with it, and that's yeah.
What is y'all's aspect?
Well, I mean,
what type of things of industry and commercial? What is y'all's idea?
I don't get a vote, but personally,
that's for everybody here.
Right.
Everybody can hear me, so anybody can speak on this.
I don't get a vote, but we're trying to get as much feedback as possible. That's why we appreciate this venue.
Thank you.
And I think personally, and I'm just a county employee, I'm not elected, nothing, you know, I have no agenda here.
They threw you under the bus.
I think something low impact is probably the best thing for up here, but I don't know to what extent. I mean, that's why we're doing the economic analysis. That's why we're having these meetings, is to figure out what the best case scenario is.
Yeah, right. It's going to affect every one of us here.
Right.
That's why we're all here.
Yes.
Mayor Wong just kept our property taxes low after balancing the budget about 6 months ago.
Yeah, we're getting ready to have another budget discussion, so. I appreciate everybody coming out. I'm gonna hang around for a few minutes if you have individual questions.
Gino's wheeling and dealing. This guy campaigned for Wong. He's not being thrown under the bus.
Oh, I know, but I want everyone to think of it, because I want to put the blame back on him.
Yeah.
Secrets aren't fun. This is an open forum.
Come on, stand beside us.
While they're deliberating a little bit, again, I want to thank you all for coming out. I will say, I've lived in Hamilton County my whole life. This is my first year in a government job, and so I come from the private sector. I've always had a healthy skepticism of government, and I appreciate you guys being here and having your voices heard.
We appreciate you, Nathan.
So we're gonna keep discussing this. It sounds like there's going to be some changes between now and February 14th. The announcement of that agenda will come out beforehand, so you guys will have a chance to see it. And that I would encourage as many of you to be there on the 14th as possible. Thank you.
Can you work with them?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know she'll work hard. Because she's on